it's Robin Dillard here, publisher of BEQ Pride magazine. And I just want to take an opportunity today to introduce you all to a longtime friend, Lynn Reyes. I've known her since way back. We met probably in 1998 as new employees at IBM. And it was actually my second round as an IBMer. So let it suffice to say, we've been through some things. Lynn is brilliant. She's the perfect intellectual partner when you need to talk or work through something that kind of keeps you up. If you have an idea, you're just trying to work it out and you need that partner to try to help you articulate what's like very clear to you in your own head and in your gut. But you want to bring your best to your clients. Everyone should have a Lynn as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, I want to just bring her in. And I also want to let you know that my friendship with Lynn has really allowed me to explore my ideas and thoughts and my hunches about other things, including BEQ Pride magazine. So Lynn is also an advisor at BEQ Pride. And rest assured, she contributes in a lot of ways. And in some cases, some articles and one of which we're going to talk about today because it was part of our spring magazine. And I'll put the link to the article in the comment section. And then ultimately, here what I'm trying to demonstrate is what it looks like when you have like a kinship or a friendship with someone that you are able to mentally spar with, think about ideas and what that looks like. And today, what we've decided to take on is a department we have that's new in BEQ Pride called a new business order. And this is basically where we're going to focus on a future way that we want business to react to a particular problem. For instance, we're talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at BEQ Pride. And it's not just for belonging's sake. And it's not just because it's the right thing to do. It's because we really do believe that there's an opportunity cost for discrimination, for bias, for exclusion. We think that opportunity cost is way too high. We also believe that each sector, that would be the public sector, private sector, and civil society, all have a specific role in our economy. And there are better ways that they can play those roles respectively. And then finally, we take on the idea of exploring supplier diversity in any program that purports to or is designed to bring new routes to market, new routes to talent, or even new markets, or that there are innovative ways to kind of deliver your products and services. We like to explore those and engage people and the need to employ or include more people with different experiences, backgrounds, lived experiences, ideas, and thoughts, and how that is that X factor when we really do benefit from diversity, equity, inclusion. So let me bring Lynn into the studio and start our short conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Please comment. Send us emails. We'll have our contact information there. But let's just bring Lynn into the stream. Hey, Lynn.
Hi, Robin. How are you?
Good, good, good. I was trying to tell the folks that are joining us a little bit about you and a little bit about our longtime relationship. I don't really get to have these conversations with people that I've known for so long. Like, I think we met in 1998-ish, I
Woo,
believe. Yeah,
woo.
a long time ago. So anyway, we probably finish each other's sentences sometimes, which is could be troublesome. Um, but but today we're going to try to embark on a conversation around some thought leading, we hope, ideas that um, you shared in an article, and it's not the first article that you've done with BEQ Pride, but it's like a way of people sort of getting in chance to and giving us a chance to put our ideas out there. We don't think we invented them. We just want to, you know, have a conversation with other people and as many people as possible. So one way to do that is put your ideas out there, and people typically will tell you you're clueless, or they'll bring more information. So anyway, let's talk about it. The new article that's out is called, it's in our A New Business Order section of the magazine and on the website, but it's called A New Era, A New Ecosystem, Leveling Up to the New Now. And it is actually revisiting a previous article we had. So why don't you jump in and sort of, if you don't mind, summing up sort of what you're thinking, and then we can jump right into the conversation.
Thank you so much, Robin. And I'm so glad we've had this intellectual partnership, the ability to maintain fidelity and integrity to an intellectual journey. So, first of all, thank you for that. We all need that. I tell people, everyone needs a Robin. so, but anyway, the second article, after discussions with you, really brought home, after some pretty big events going on in the world, something that you and I had been discussing privately for some time, is that this we are in a transition, I think, to a world that is, if we so choose, that is generative, moving from extractive, zero sum, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. And yes, that happens, but we are moving to a time and a series of opportunities and business opportunities where the reality is the world's big enough. The world is big enough. And instead of leaving so much on the table, which I think is happening,
Yes.
right? When opportunity cost is too high, let's just keep it moving and stop with the realizing the opportunity cost, right? There's so much value, net new value to be created, and impact to be made. And that requires us to look at the world we're looking at now around some shared outcomes, and we have to say what they are before we can see what they are. And once we see what they are, we can actually do something about it. What do you think?
I think that's great. And you know what? We are cheating. We had over 20 something years worth of,
I know we're cheating.
Kind of talking back and forth. And sometimes things go unsaid. They kind of just go through the ether and hit your head. I don't have to bother saying it. But, that work we did together with some other of our coworkers at IBM around outcomes-based delivery of services, getting that patent award so many years ago, really, it really is at the beginning of the thinking around the roles of government, the roles of civil society, the roles of the public sector. And I believe that's where we should start our conversation today, around those roles.
Okay. The role of government, right? We are Govy gals when we first met. And I think that probably we need to state this, right?
Yeah.
Because it's so easy for us as individuals, or maybe participants in an organization, members to poo-poo, government, just as it is easy for us to do the same for different types of organizations. But at the end of the day, the government plays a profoundly distinctive role in order for private sector to operate, right, and do its thing, and for us as individuals and members of civil society to actually create community. And that is to steward the public good, right, to inform and protect and spread that in such a way that there's some balance between the natural inclinations of the private sector and the natural
to be focused on a profit, right? That thing. Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. I used to say to clients, just as profit is the currency of the private sector, confidence is the currency of the public sector.
Absolutely.
And that is seemingly, well, it appears to be at an imbalanced right now, right? Absolutely. Part of that is because we don't take the time, perhaps, to actually acknowledge these realities, right? We're busy we're busy running fast, oftentimes in place, right? So, but this is a larger thing. So, the role of government a lot of times plays a balancing act between the natural inclinations of the private sector and civil society. What do you
Yeah,
think?
and I think one of the other things to bring out is the fact that government plays the role as facilitator of
Mm,
things happening,
mm,
making sure at the different levels, for instance, that the pothole in your street is fixed regularly, that the trash is removed, yeah, that
right.
teachers, public school teachers get paid, and
Mm,
then on up, to state government, to the federal government. And I thought it might be helpful because of my familial
mm,
relationship with supplier diversity and my fundamental belief that it is a viable mechanism for innovation, and it's like one of those secret weapons that I think hold
mhm,
the key to an economic boom for
mhm,
everybody. Because right now, I mean, I know I talked to a great deal about The Sum of Us by Heather McGee,
mm,
and that zero sum game that you talked about a few minutes
mhm.
ago. But the concept here is there's so much talent left on the sidelines. There's so many conversations not happening, whether
Mm.
it's because of discrimination, unconscious bias, gender bias, whatever it is. But
Built-in incentives that keep
yes,
us in place,
distort,
right?
yeah, and they distort things because we've always done it this way, so we keep doing this way, but it doesn't work anymore, but we're still going to do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is that the world is moving on, right? And so some
Right.
of the things that we took for granted and structures and the ways we've done things in the past really may not work anymore. So, for instance, let's just go down that path for a minute. We were talking about and neither one of us, so it's fully disclosed, are supplier diversity practitioners, but we'll use that conversation because our audience is familiar with
Mm,
supplier diversity. So we know that historically programs were put in place to sort of create a supply chain to have economic opportunity for communities back in 1968
mm,
when there were so many riots and things going on in the country and just unrest
sure.
and in after the death of Martin Luther King. So you have three big companies, what's now AT&T, but was a Baby Bell then,
Mm,
IBM, and General Motors. Those are the three companies originally, and they were looking at, I need to create an opportunity in these communities that where we live, work, and play
yeah.
for building other businesses, suppliers, right? So there was this whole ecosystem set up, and that thing just grew and grew. It became a wonderful place for opportunities for diverse owned businesses, whether they were Black
Mm,
and African American, people that are Asian Pacific Islander or
mm,
Hispanic, opportunities for people um, who have disabilities, LGBTQ plus folks, I said women, but it
mhm,
became this opportunity to be inclusive of marginalized communities, people that otherwise aren't involved in the supply chain, and it
mhm,
grew, and it's been wonderful. But what we're talking about now, over 50 some years, there's some patterns there that
mhm,
we have been talking about challenging, and we see in the marketplace that big companies are challenging them, or they're having to disrupt what they were doing to do something new, and governments are doing new things as well. So if
yep.
that is our premise, what are your thoughts, Ms. Reyes?
Where to start? Where to start? Well, you talked about governments being facilitators of not just balancing acts, right? But facilitators and perhaps even leaders um, in market making, right? We all want, if we're going to talk about economic growth, economic vitality, governments can actually play a key role that to make markets. And so, what is that, right? Governments. Let's state a fact. Governments are the largest purchasers of goods and services, bar none.
Mhm.
Every country, every county, state, province, whatever, they are the largest purchasers of goods and services.
So that right there deserves a pause and a
Mm-hmm.
mic drop. Mic drop.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
the ultimate um, buyer
Mm-hmm.
in the market is going to be the government.
For sure. For sure.
So when we have something like a supplier diversity program, one
Mm-hmm.
of the incentives that's set up so that corporations will participate
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes, and we know this to be true, I don't know line and verse and in what law, but that there's a requirement when you go to bid for federal, state, local government contracts that you prove that you're being inclusive, because the monies that the government is going to spend are the tax revenues from the people in the society, right?
Yeah, ours, right?
So it can't be that they just spend it with the same folks, but it's like a way of spreading it out and putting jobs and putting opportunity back in communities. So
Right.
I think one of the first things is just verbally acknowledging that supplier diversity programs exist so that big companies and big brands can have an opportunity to bid on federal contracts.
Yeah. And those federal contracts are in the billions and billions and billions of dollars. So
Yes.
private sector should be doing what it's supposed to be doing. They want to they want to make the money, right?
Right.
And that's fine. But how you make the money is a different story, right? Because we are increasingly interconnected. We are increasingly dependent on each other, whether we like to acknowledge it or not.
Right.
And I think that if we don't acknowledge it, we're going to lose our competitive edge, if not already. Okay.
Exactly. And I think that's one of the things to bring up. So many times when we look at these programs like supply diversity, we get kind of caught up in a conversation about it's the right thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
or because it kind of absent of this huge incentive for big companies to do it, to have a program.
Right.
Right. And now it's about, okay, how effective can these programs be? How many people are able to participate?
Mm-hmm.
And are they really routes to talent, routes to market, routes to new markets.
And for what purpose do
For
we
what
need
purpose?
these new routes to talent? And for what purpose do we need these new routes to market? And frankly, new markets, period. Right?
Yeah,
The,
and new and innovative ways to deliver the stuff we're already committed
yeah,
to. You know, so
yeah.
so can you tell us or talk a little bit about what you mean when new routes to talent, new routes to market, new
Yeah.
markets? Break that down, because you and I are just doing one of those beaming things. I know what you're talking
I
about, but
know.
put it
I know.
in regular language.
In regular language. Okay, so new routes to talent. There's a bunch of talent out there that can um, generate new things, new ideas, new solutions, new products, this is this is our economic history. This is every place's economic uh, history. So in order to do that, you need to unleash that talent, right? A lot of times those talents, and we've gone through this, right? The talented talent pools are sitting in defined boxes or square pegs and round holes or things like that. When if included in an inclusive growth engine, right, that route would be clear, and more participants would be able to be
Engage.
engaged and included in a
Totally included. Yeah.
yeah. So
So let me just jump in there for that. So companies can get talent by recruiting people out of college from the top universities, or they can, employ people that they poach from their competitor, or, there's all these different ways. But one way, and a magical way for
mm,
supply diversity, is the talent can come through a subcontractor. through a vendor,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the beauty of a supplier diversity program is in that when you hire diverse suppliers, in theory, you're putting back money in their communities where they come from, and you're creating jobs, because we all know that small business is the economic engine for the country. And if that's the case, then leaving out diverse owned businesses is kind of cutting off our nose to spite our faces. So
Yeah.
routes to talent, using suppliers or vendors to get at talent that you don't want to employ full time in your on your payroll in your company and have to pay benefits to and retirement and all of that. It's like tapping in. So we know programs do that. They outsource things. They bring people in for special projects. They
Pieces of work. Right. Right.
staffing, whatever. Okay,
Mhm.
so routes to talent, routes to market, and new markets.
Yes. So routes to market. Why are we trying to expand or grow or reveal or surface or create different routes? It's because we need more of them so that we can remain and continue to be vital economies.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That economic vitality is an outcome that we all share.
Mm-hmm.
We just need to state it. We need to perhaps rally around the networks that are going to assure our economic vitality, not just a small percentage of players to be vibrant and vital, but the whole. Why is that? Because when you have more participants in the creation of our collective economic vitality, you are stronger. When you don't, you are less resilient. You are increasingly fragile to shocks, and the recovery from those shocks um, costs a lot. In fact, it can cost a generation or two.
Yeah,
I've got
really.
kids. I've got kids. I don't want to put that burden on them. They need to be unleashed themselves, right? They've got these ideas. They've got, I mean, my 8-year-old is teaching himself how to play. Um, I'll have to put this online sometime, Robin. He's learning classical music. He's learning how to play uh, the piano from YouTube. And he asks me the other day, Mom, I need to transition from this classical music to Dr. Dre's still, Snoop. And, and he's doing it, right? And he's doing this on his own. Imagine if you take that little small example and um, you unleash that in ways where new things are being created, right? We become stronger. He is stronger. Um, the organization that he works for will be much more vibrant. Um, if you keep that going, we become increasingly competitive and it gets hard to copy, right?
Yeah,
So,
and it's hard to even know what you're going to invent, because I think the thing that's really cool is when you bring people from different walks of life and
mhm,
lived experiences, backgrounds, thoughts. Um, when you bring that together with people, and it's in an environment where people can fully show up as who they are authentically,
mhm,
and there's respect in that room, and or in that virtual room, and you're coming together to advance the goals and missions of the organization and what you're trying to achieve. When you really, really honestly do that, it's magic, because I can think of a whole lot of stuff by myself, and I'm
mhm,
sure you can. But when
mhm,
we really decide to come together, and we've done this before, the two of us, we can come up with something that we wouldn't have really thought of on our own. And I think that's like that X factor that I can't wait to talk to an economist, to really, really be explicit about the benefits of really doing supplier diversity, and not just to pick on that program, but supplier inclusion, any of those programs that are designed to bring more talent in,
right,
and more diversity, because it's not a zero sum game. It's not taking money or ideas from one pot and giving them to someone else, although some programs operate that way.
for sure, for sure.
That's not the intent. And I want to live in a world and work towards a world where we actually understand the value of inclusion
Mm-hmm.
and the value of feeling as if you belong, which, by the way, I happen to believe that's my responsibility to feel like I belong. And when I don't,
Mine too,
to
right?
step
But
out, like I gotta go.
it's an individual's responsibility. You cannot say, hey, everybody, you guys have to make sure that I belong. I have to do that. I have to let you know what would help in that. And in so doing, then maybe we can actually make some magic. But you said something interesting, right? So we have the routes to talent. And when we have more routes to talent through an inclusive growth engine, then that inclusive growth engine, is going to run to create new routes to market simply by virtue of its being, right? Being included. When you have that new route to market, because they're there, then you become, that you contribute to that economic vitality. When you have the economic vitality, there's that next thing, right? That next X factor. You're not just growing what you know to be a known pie. You're actually creating,
New pie.
yeah, yeah,
That's what I believe in. New pie. I don't need to chase, when
mm,
we were IBMers, Accenture, to get the nickel that's going down the gutter, right? We don't need that. We don't
yeah,
need to chase like that. We can actually grow new pie. And I'm
yeah,
really excited, and I'm not going to tell all the news, but like
mm,
we have something going on and conversations going on in an article that we're going to share in our summer magazine that
right,
is about a new forward thinking part of the federal government that's actually responsible for facilitating certain conversations, for growing new worlds, if you will.
mm-hmm,
And
mm,
so when we think about our current structure of our programs, we really need to think strongly about, really bigly. No, I'm just joking. We need to think. We need to think about how best to engage people, engage businesses in a bigger conversation. How do
right,
we bring more to the table so we can have a new pie, bigger pie,
mm-hmm,
and grow in ways where we're leading in the world and not in a situation where our talent, ideas, innovations are going off to places where people don't really care that you're a woman or don't care that you're, from a minoritized group or whatever.
yeah,
And really let our capitalism and market forces really work, but work for the good of more people.
right. Because you don't lose anything by doing that.
No.
You have so much to gain, right? So perhaps a mental model, this whole engagement, um, not just systematically but systemically, right? Systemic engagement, especially where, in the middle part, right? You've got the top part
Fortune,
that already know, they already know,
right?
right? um, but and you've got the masses,
Right.
right? But the
All
middle
the small
part,
business owners all over, they got
the
that.
middle part is what matters,
Mhm.
because it's sort of like a barbell, right? The barbell effect. You have these two weights at the end, but the thing that holds it together and the thing that has the tenacity and its tensile strength, it bends, but it's strong. That's what keeps it together. You need to grow that. That's what grows everything, right? And it makes it less of a zero sum and more of a positive sum.
Yeah, and an ecosystem, right?
Yep.
Because it's not just one end and the other end. It's what's in the middle that matters, which is one of the sections in the article that we're talking about. So so let's just go there because we're at about 29 minutes. So we're gonna give this a couple more minutes to kind of sum up. See how fast that happens? Like
Mhm.
even 20 years can go by. That's what happened to us. But um the idea of the middle.
Mm.
And let's talk about government versus private sector versus civil society. Um, so there's incentive to engage more people, more businesses, and diverse businesses in whatever company X is trying to sell to the government, whatever the government is buying.
Mm.
Company X needs to perform at a certain level with diverse communities so that that goal of the government of being equitable is actually happening. And when that happens, that means there's some compliance in there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so the level to which we're able to create this ecosystem that has the big players at the top and the masses at the bottom depends on all the variations of sizes of companies and organizations in between.
Mm-hmm.
And then the compliance part is to make sure that it's happening. And I think in some cases, that's kind of where our current model and structures sort of fall down. Um, and the incentives are a little distorted. So I think one of the things in the article we talked about were what's it called? 9199?
1990.
One nine.
It's an internet rule of thumb,
Okay.
right? Um, that has been applied to many other contexts. So you have the 1% who is who are, already representing. They are already leading. They are already at the top of their game. They are eminent, right?
Vanguards, right? Is that the
Vanguard.
Vanguards?
Yes. Yes. So they're at that 1%. And they are leading in ways where the rest of us may be saying, wow, that's a model to follow. That's a model to try and emulate, even as they're trying to just push the envelope, right? So
Mhm.
there's that. There's the 90%, right? So that's the other side, which are cynics, people who, there are always going to be people and organizations who won't believe, right? And but there's places for that, right? And there are advocates who are acknowledging that you need to change,
Yeah.
um, and they
They buy
acknowledge.
into a certain degree, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
in.
So that's a 90%, but then there's that 9%. These pace setters and these breakthrough thinkers and stuff
Players.
like
Yeah.
that, players. Um, they're that middle, and they are professionals at it, and they're trying to, through efficiencies, through productivity, through new business models, even they're trying to, push that through. Those folks, those folks are something else, right?
So
Invest.
where's our opportunity, do you think, in terms of getting those groups to create, like the tipping point, if you will, so that we can have these new models, those breakthroughs like you were talking about? Where's the growth
I
opportunity?
The growth opportunity is everywhere, but let's be specific about how these behaviors, because they're different patterns, how do we grow? I think that um, the 1%ers, not the 1% that we think, but the 1% who are the vanguards of those. So you continue to lend visibility to that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and provide those lessons, provide those attributes, provide those um, sort of business model canvases for others to see, right?
Mm-hmm.
For
Mm-hmm.
others to see, because there's a lot to learn and leverage from. A lot of people don't like to reinvent the wheel. I get it, right? I get it. So make those models visible, um, make those practices visible, and keep that moving. Invest in. They're already, and besides, those 1% are they tend to be quite generous, in the way that they lead.
Yeah, and the way we've talked about them in this particular article is the vanguards, the 1%. So if you were to apply this concept to supplier diversity, they're doing it, but they're not necessarily doing it in a formal way. They're doing it because they're seeing the benefits and
Mm-hmm.
the generativeness. It's not transactional what they're doing. They're seeing a value and they're doing more of it to create whatever it is that they're creating. And the
Yeah.
pace setters, the long standing people that were out there early and making something happen to scale or on scale, they're watching the vanguard and maybe hopefully adopting some of those practices and making the model
More
different and making it move.
efficiencies. They have platforms, you
Yes.
know, they have platforms that already exist. So scaling is possible with them. right? So they're watching. They've got platforms. Scaling is possible.
So
Um,
in this ecosystem with the, what do we call them? The cynics, the advocates, the breakthrough players, the pace setters, and the vanguards. The idea is to get more pace setters and vanguards. Absolutely. Right.
yeah,
And to
yeah.
grow. And to do that, we really need to start thinking about how we monitor, how we grow these supplier diversity programs and their incentives. How many more business owners, and what does the, can we get in, and what does the pipeline look like for that talent that can come in through
Mm,
that mechanism? What are we doing to grow that talent and get the word out and get more engaged? What are we doing to incentivize the companies in the middle to take on some of the responsibility that we now are placing on the really big companies to
mhm.
engage all the masses? That's not efficient.
No, it's not efficient because um, the efficiencies are in the middle, but it's so tight. It's taxed. So perhaps it might be in exploring smarter measures,
Mm-hmm,
outcome-based measures, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because if we don't, we will tend towards the mean or we will tend towards the minimum standard, which is compliant. Check the
Right,
box.
check the box. I'll get my, and that's, by the way, for anybody who wants to know, um, the GAO, if it's even called that anymore, my government days are
It
so behind
is.
me, but
It is.
okay, have a report that they put out every year that talks about the 100 top 100 government or federal contractors. And they do
Mhm,
it for government overall. So
mhm.
typically the top are like the top five are usually defense related, health and human services. Give me another one.
Science, NASA.
NASA's there, especially, yeah, because that's forward thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, and then it will do it by agency. And every company that we see on anyone's um, top list, like best places to work for LGBTQ plus people,
Mm.
or diversity, player of the year, whatever it is, what you'll find is every one of those companies is represented somewhere, whether it may not be for government overall top
Yeah,
100, but if
but
winning
somewhere.
one agency or one department, you'd be able to see, oh, there is this connection between winning government funds and revenue to run the big business and having to be inclusive on the other side. So we can end on an easy note, and we can always start having these conversations. And I'm going to be introducing some new folks, some economists, some other folks, to get this conversation going in a different way and to
Yeah.
language it up in a different way. So take them out of their econ world and put them in the real world, talking to real people.
Yeah.
What does this mean to the masses? But we want to end on this concept of shared outcomes,
Mm-hmm.
um, revealing the reality of opportunity for everyone. So, we talked about this a few minutes ago, any one organization has their own desired outcomes, goals they're trying to achieve. But we got to keep that in balance with, your goals and my goals could conflict. And at some point, it could become unfair if we're not playing fair on the up and up. So the
Or a
idea,
little perverse, right?
or
So
perverse, yeah, could create an outcome nobody
things
wants.
aren't fair, right? Oftentimes things aren't fair. But the minute that they start to become perverse is always unknown,
Yeah.
right? It's a subtlety that if we're not um, organized around shared outcomes, we will just stay there. And that perversity will become
A
incestuous
distortion. Yeah.
and
And
breed nine heads. And then all of a sudden, we're just not competitive.
yeah,
And we're leaving too much on the table, and somebody else is getting that, right?
right. So the
Mhm.
shared outcomes reveal the reality of opportunity for everybody because we have a higher level order. In this
Yep.
case, government wants to engage, using the tax revenues to engage more and more businesses that are the engine of the economy that create the jobs, because most jobs in this country are created by the masses, not by the bigger
Yeah.
fortune rate companies. That's just not how it works.
Yep.
And then shared outcomes, that they become their own virtuous cycle of self-sustaining
Networks.
networks, right? Exactly.
Yeah.
And then finally, really understanding the role of government and governance is allowing us to align our individual outcomes and goals we have with a broader set of goals set by society and for society as a whole.
Mhm.
And a real conversation in the article is about finding that balance, right? How to balance this in such a way that it becomes more efficient and we get more of what we want, which is
Yeah.
growing and growth and opportunity for more people.
Yeah. Well, that is the strategic question. So I would just say, while we can look outside of ourselves for these leaders, and yes, they exist, actually, the easiest place to start is with ourselves and just keep it moving, just keep it moving and take responsibility for that and be accountable for it, because the next generation is actually watching, and the next generation is going to be our next generation of leaders as well. They don't have the patience, I don't think.
They're not patient.
I don't
And
think.
the fact of the matter is companies are already moving in this way to be more inclusive and figure out ways to bring more opportunity, because at the bottom line, that
Mhm.
new and different model
Yeah.
eventually is where things will gravitate towards, and making changes in our current structures and programs as we need to, and not deciding to do things the way we've always done them.
Yeah.
We gotta change. And so the moral of the story is there is opportunity now to
Mhm.
rethink how we're doing our and operating within our programs, how
Mhm.
to challenge ourselves to engage more businesses and to spread the love, if you will, because in the end, we all will benefit from that.
Yeah. I don't think we lose anything. We really don't. And the opportunity cost is what we have to gain, right? So so we don't lose on that. It may seem a little uncomfortable at first, but change never, favored those who are just comfortable, right? So,
Yeah, and that one of the rules around deciding if a company is diverse owned
mm-hmm,
is the 51%, owned, controlled, operated, whatever that definition is. But who
mm-hmm,
decided 51% really is the magic number? I mean, I understand what the 51 is trying to do, but there are
yeah,
other organizations that are now looking at, well, it's not just owned, controlled, and operated. Let's look at, what do they make? Who's running it?
mm-hmm,
And if they're achieving any part of that particular outcome of including women, if you will, in the making of something or the owning of something or the running of something, then they might need to be included,
mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm,
So it's like looking at our boundaries we set and figuring out ways of how we can have more people be involved, more talent engaged. So
yeah.
anyway, we're at 43 minutes and
Oh
31
my goodness.
seconds. I want
Okay.
to tell my friends that you can reach Lynn. Her email's at the bottom, lynn.reyes@pureepiphany.com, which is a long story behind that, Pure Epiphany.
Mhm.
um, and or comment, like this video. And if you want to hear more, or you've got something to add, or, uh, you have something about what we said that you disagree, we welcome the conversation. So, well, you're right. And Lynn, I'm so thankful to have you to think about these things. And I guess we don't need to have our weekly conversation, this weekend. We've had it here.
Yeah. But we'll probably have a conversation anyway.
Exactly.
That's
So,
all.
and next time we'll have to have Kai
Mm,
play for us his
yep.
transitional music.
Yeah,
Live entertainment. That'll
yeah, for
that'll
sure.
spruce up the number of people
There you
live.
go. There you go. All right. Well, thank you
All
for the
right.
opportunity, Robin.
Thank
So,
you. It's good
all
talking
right.
to you.